when you think you can control the future, you punish yourself until you create that future. That's why we get burnout, because it's a zero. It doesn't work.
You're listening to the 9 to Survive podcast, where we speak to the most inspiring entrepreneurs of Australia. I'm your host, Alex Whiteside, the CEO of EasyCompanies. Running your own business can be quite daunting and scary. We're here to show you how to face those fears and help you build your dream today. We listen to the innovators, the game changers, and the thought leaders who have built their startups from the ground up. Hear what makes them tick, how they've overcome their own failures, and be inspired to take your own leap of faith and ignite your passion for business. So on today's show, we've got Constantine Georgio. He currently is the head of venture capital at Venture Crowd. He's already had a successful exit of his own business when he sold Velteo. And he also on the side runs the Founder Lab, which he's passionate about helping people become better founders. And he's run over 370 startups through various bootcamps and is focused on founder resilience. All right, well, thanks for having me on the show, Constantine. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So what got you into, what's your backstory? What got you into entrepreneurship?
A deep hate for working for the man initially. But more importantly, I just didn't like the way I was treated in large organizations and the cultures that they led. And I was typically in a sales marketing kind of role where you're just cannon fodder, and if you're not performing, they slide you out the next time the door opens. And I thought to myself, when I grow up and be an entrepreneur, do my own thing, I'm going to do it differently. I want to build a conscious team and a conscious culture, one where it's safe and inclusive, and so that I guess that was the driver, as well as I've always been into innovation and disruption, so I kind of grew up through the school of Microsoft and Cisco ecosystem back in the day when there was a lot of money to be made
in the 90s.
In the 90s to mid 2000s, it was one of the first closed one of the first deals with the largest number of IP telephony handsets for Cisco back in 2000, and that was interesting because people talk about disruptive selling and all that. Imagine trying to sell to someone who's going to lose their job if they buy your stuff. So that's pretty tough.
Did you always want to be an entrepreneur when you grew up? Like, what did you aspire to be?
No. I was, I think I was a slow learner, to be honest with you, and was just surviving, with what was in front of me. Lots of neurosis, lots of fucking trauma as a result of, pretty tough upbringing, and just being lost as a kid. And but luckily I got into technology, and that sort of, got me to be exposed to interesting influences. And then fundamentally, I got to a point where after some success in that, I realized I was empty of, I didn't have much meaning, right?
Yeah.
Just before that though, for a couple of years, I actually got a life coach. And initially I got a life coach because I consciously thought it was what I needed for my career. But actually, in actual fact, I needed it for my life. And Vanessa was amazing, and I think I was with her for about 8 or 10 years. And that was the start of unpeeling the onion and becoming. Took me about 3 years to get to a point where I realized I was totally fucked up.
Yeah.
Can you swear on this show? Where I was challenged, and I had mental models that weren't really working. Was totally unconscious to those, but she really helped me in a very nourishing way. Slowly become conscious to that, become aware, and that also coincided with me wanting to be an entrepreneur, because I kind of realized I don't need to be in this power dynamic where I had to serve someone who was in the title of boss. Yeah. And luckily I had a couple of co-founders who were also, aligned to that mission. And we started a company called Velteo, which is ancient Greek for improve.
So you've had your first business, like it's it's been successful. You've exited it. You're
Yeah,
out now.
yeah, yeah,
And then you went on to build the Founder Lab,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
now head of venture capital. But getting back to the first business, what was that like to first, the days when you first started it? What was it like to kind of take the leap of faith and get into
yeah.
business?
Great question. I had about 6 months of dry reaching at 3 a.m. every morning, going, "What the fuck have I done? I've just given up." All the things that you don't consider, that because you use a lot of the pain energy to kind of go, "I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to resign from my job." Then you get out and you realize, oh, holy shit, I don't have the Navy to support me anymore, and I'm just a little pirate on my own, floating in the ocean. But luckily, I had enough resilience development skills there where I would take what I would isolate, and thanks to my life coach, but also around the same time I discovered the work, Byron Katie's process called the work, which was basically cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, and that was my real first introduction to inquiry, self-inquiry.
So this was around the time you were starting your business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you were
yeah,
still
yeah.
working in a job at the time?
No,
No.
no. I
So you'd quit
pulled
now.
the parachute,
You'd made
got
the leap.
out. Yeah, yeah, and but you look, at the end of the day, I believe there's only 4 rules in business: sell, deliver, invoice, collect. So if I took care of the first stage, then the rest will happen. And I believe there's no problem that more money can't fix. So I went on and we just started selling and deploying and became a pretty successful early stage.
How many employees did you have at the peak, or
At the
like
peak, we
what
had
were the
30.
yeah?
We only had 30, but
So what was it like being a founder? Did you have previous management experience, or this was the first?
I've led small teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But nothing this big.
But I've never been. I don't have an MBA. I don't have any of that. But I just sort of looked, navel gazed a lot, and realized, how do I want to be treated? How wasn't I being treated in those other organizations, and how would I do it differently now?
And you felt that made you a better
Totally.
leader.
Yeah, yeah. Like we had a culture. We had zero attrition, and that's not because we were keeping the baddies, the low performers, but because we built a culture where people felt like they belonged, and they could be vulnerable, and as a result, feel safe. And we were doing a lot of innovation. Right, 27 of us were actually developers in the Salesforce ecosystem. So. And then, it didn't take long for Salesforce to take notice. And then we got approached by Salesforce Ventures, and they put some money in. And then we had very close after that 3 acquirers wanting to buy us from the States. And, I didn't really want to sell it because I love what we were doing. And we were trading with the top 100 companies in Australia and government departments. And this is around 2000, right? 2010, I should say.
So it wasn't an easy decision to make to sell your company, like to exit.
Hell no.
No.
Hell no. I didn't
So
want to give
you
up
don't
my
think
baby.
it ever would have been an easy decision, or it just had to be done?
It was never going to be an easy decision.
Wow.
For me.
Okay.
And the co-founders. But it was important to experience a successful exit, because only 1% of companies do that in the world.
Do you think there's a reason why only 1%? Is it because they're not successful, or because they don't want to give it up? They don't want to exit?
No. They're not successful.
Okay.
And I'm saying successful exit, right? I think there's 7 or 6 ways to do an exit. 6 ways. 5 of them are under duress. One is, and I define a successful exit as someone's acquired your business, and 2 years after you've left, that business still exists and has grown
and has given value to the person who acquired it. Yeah.
And so we were acquired by Blue Wolf, and Blue Wolf was acquired by IBM 2 years after that. And the team.
That's a good way to see it go, isn't it?
Yeah,
it just gets taken into a bigger.
Yeah. And we're still pretty close with the team. We have our own little ways of keeping in touch. Every time someone has a baby, we hashtag Veltean. Christen the baby at Velteo.
So you kind of follow along with the team. You still have that. That's awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what you want to see. I mean, when you're giving up a business, you want it to kind of live on, right? You don't want to just go, here's the keys. I'm never going to see you guys again. You want to kind of still be part of that culture. And I mean, ideally, anyone who's buying the business would want you to be part of it as well, right?
Yeah.
Or at least kind of around.
True.
That's good.
And then, what was interesting though, and this sounds like a first world problem, is that after the exit, I had all this, I was apparently successful, and, had all this money and whatnot, and I took my time with what I was going to do with it. But it didn't take long after I bought the dream house on the dream golf course in a gated community, and I had a lot of time on my hands to do all sorts of stuff, that I realized I was unhappy and that it was bullshit. And I actually felt that I missed the team. I wasn't there anymore. And this is about after a year of being there and doing an earn out. And so I know to, entrepreneurs, that sounds, what do you mean? Isn't that the playbook? Do an exit and that you're successful. Yes, maybe, not absolutely. So
depends how you define success, right?
yeah, of course. And so that experience was defining for me, because I realized, oh wow, okay, my journey with trying to feel satisfied through external things is now finished, because this was an epic journey and an epic milestone, right? Especially for someone who's not a serial entrepreneur prior to Velteo. And it wasn't just me, right? It was literally, my co-founders were amazing. The team was absolutely stunning. But I realized that I needed to go to get I wanted to have joy every day. And I didn't want, and it was obvious that the experience of an exit and having external validation or money wasn't enough. So I went deeper in my practices and doubled down in the last 6 years, I think. No, 7 years. And that's been an epic journey. So I think before I was like a cadet or a trainee, and look, don't get me wrong, it's not for the faint-hearted, but what ended up happening was I started to get involved in incubators and teach from my experience, because Velteo was almost like a corporate incubator, if you like, because we were doing innovation. So
well, after Velteo, you went on to run the Founder Lab, was it? Or
no.
there were
After
other
that,
things
I
in
did
between
some
that?
time with Investable at the beginnings of Investable, and then after that, joined Capital Pitch, and helped that get off the ground. And we got it to a point where we would fill the Powerhouse Museum with 500 investors and entrepreneurs, and that's pretty hard to do. And but that's where I developed. I kind of took the experience bank and developed boot camps, where I would run 12-hour boot camps and take entrepreneurs through a journey to help them either get investor ready, get their investor readiness, so their pitch readiness, commercial readiness, and due diligence readiness, and then serve them to the investment committee after that. And that was a great experience. In the end, that program was also sponsored by the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and they flew me to Myanmar, and I ran it there. I've run something similar in Papua New Guinea, and I love that stuff. I think I was a teacher in a past life, and I literally get goosebumps and
just
joy.
thinking about that. Yeah.
I love it. And I think I've had 370 entrepreneurs come through that program. And so I learned a lot from that experience. And because I'm not a typical venture capitalist, I'm more of a founder experienced investor, and I've done some angel investing myself. I took a different approach, I guess. And so I've learned a lot from that experience. Then I did a lot of I helped some other entrepreneurs do some raises, but also got involved with one of my other co-founders from Velteo, and started the Founder Lab. And that was about 3 years ago. And that was on the back of identifying that better founders, and I'm talking about, better grounded, more aware and conscious founders build better businesses. And it's something that I was auditing, if you like, throughout the bootcamp experience, and would sort of have my own internal dashboard of my top 10 entrepreneurs. And, fast forward 3-4 years later, and all of those top 10 are kicking up, like doing really well, right? And it's because
you feel you made better founders there.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, they already were, but I just kind of identified and trying to figure out where are these people going to be in the next 4 or 5 years of the 370. And so I started to create a filter and started to realize that, coachable founders seem to be better. Ones that are data-driven, make data-driven decision making. Ones who have a serious, authentic connection to the problem, and can take an evidence-based approach, right? and ones who are not afraid to sell, to get out there and put themselves on the precipice of failure and rejection, and those who build the capacity, resilience capacity, or the ability to advance despite adversity. Right, I talk a lot about that nowadays, because some interesting research has come out as a result of, the startup trend really picking up pace in the last 15 years. And so the research is not deep, but it's identifying that entrepreneurs are really not set up to understand the journey is associated with the startup journey, right?
Well, we don't learn this in school, do we? No one, like when you're in school, you're not learning. I mean, there's business courses you take, but no one's teaching you how to be an entrepreneur. Like you literally take that leap of faith, you go and start your own business, and it's you and the whole world, and that can be pretty scary. But you know this, right, from what you do, is that it costs, for less than $5,000 you can start a business. You can start a business.
Boom.
Yeah. And now it takes off, hopefully, if it does. And now you've got other kind of challenges that you face, like how to hire a team and how to manage a team. And then the challenges just keep coming at you. And there's no one out there teaching you this. So it is
And so the Founder Lab was meant to build resilient founders, get them ready for the journey ahead, understand how to build resilience, adaptability, awareness, for the benefits of, everything from product market fit, customer-centered design, being able to understand what problem are you solving, being able to hire the right people and maintain and retain those people. Because at the end of the day, you may be the CEO, but it doesn't mean you're the leader.
No, I agree. Right. Yeah.
So
I once had someone say to me, like, I won't respect you just because you're my boss. Like, that's not how you earn someone's respect just because of a title, right? You earn it because you earn it. Like you work closely with them and you build that rapport. And that's what you always think when you're the CEO. I'm the CEO. That's it. Everyone's going to respect me. It's not that easy.
No, not at all. Yeah. So you actually have to become aware that calling yourself the head of this or the leader of that or the CEO of that is actually a barrier to authenticity and vulnerability, because people, I notice as well when someone...
You're not as approachable.
You actually have to try harder to be approachable.
You're right. Yeah. That's a good way of seeing it.
Yeah. So have that assumption in your head, kind of going, this CEO title is going to make everyone shut down. So how not
express themselves as like they might to their colleagues, tell them everything. To you, they're going to feel like, oh, if I say the wrong thing, then I'm not going to have a job anymore. So you got to almost make them feel that they can say anything, right? Is that
absolutely? And that's a really good segue to one of the initiatives that the Founder Lab gave birth to was the Founder Circle, which is a free founder peer support group that we ran across the eastern seaboards in all the WeWorks and the hubs and River City Labs and Stone and Chalk, and it was basically like the 12 steps process, but for founders. And we had we have a pretty good facilitators guide, and this is open source, by the way.
So I've been to one of these events. I've been to a few of them actually.
Yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and what was interesting is that every entrepreneur and CEO or leader of a venture, a startup, says this game is very isolating. I feel isolated.
Yeah. It's crazy to think you have a CEO, they have 30 employees, but they say that they feel lonely in the business. Like it does make sense. You have 30 people around you, right? But it's because you have your own challenges that are hard to express with the team if you're not allowing them in. So
that's right. And it's also because you're worried that if I be really vulnerable with my investor, he's gonna, not support me, he or she, my board, my co-founders, because there might be some, the top three typical problems is, when do I put a bullet in my startup?
Yeah.
When do I pull a bullet in my investor? Yeah. When do I put a bullet in my co-founder? Yeah. Basically, if you were to narrow it down, but it is quite isolating, and there's also because it's there's a lot of stigma associated with being vulnerable, with failing, especially in this country. But as we all know, in startup, it's all about failure every day, right? What do you learn from that?
Mistakes. Yeah.
So how do we turn those? And if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, you're not innovating, you're not creating a moat around your startup, because everyone else is doing the same thing as you're doing.
So these founder circles definitely played a part in, I mean, at least myself, in allowing to connect with 10 or 15 other founders and actually express the challenges that you're facing in the business. And those rooms, I mean, they did sit to a particular topic, but they would also, you'd actually be able to help one another. And that sense of community enough in itself can actually get you through your problems, at least I found, or guide you along the way, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important to be able to have a space where you can share the things you can't share normally with anyone else, with people who've got some kind of shared experience. No expert in the room. When people talk from their experience and offer advice from that perspective. Even if you contemplate the idea or the problem, the challenge, that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, that's great. So what other things were the Founder Lab doing? Like you had the Founders Circle. Were there any other workshops or events?
We ran boot camps and that were about building resilience. One of the things that we loved doing was running these boot camps that took people on a journey it was a little bit of a Trojan horse as well, to get people to learn how to do self-inquiry and recontextualize, the idea, the belief, the thought that's causing them suffering, but also to learn how to be adaptable and improve their awareness through different exercises. But also it's a community building thing as well.
Yeah.
And all the people who have actually attended those boot camps we're very close friends with now, because when you get to a point where you get to share those kind of vulnerable states and you get people and you see them have aha moments and kind of go, holy shit, I am supported. Holy shit, I have an amazing team. And because we can too easily get distracted by the scoreboard. Right, I'm a strong believer
the metrics, right? The vanity metrics, or even just the actual metrics.
They're all vanity metrics.
Any metrics, yeah.
Because you can't have profit directly. Yeah. You can't influence profit.
It's actually
a byproduct.
That's a good segue into what defines success. Because I noticed you'd written a few blogs about this, or you've at least got out there and said that before. Like, what is the definition of success for a startup founder? Is it profit? Is it revenue? Is it Because this is what, at least myself, when I started business, that's what I was defining success as. What's the bottom line doing? Which can put you on a roller coaster, because 1 month is down and then, I'm not successful anymore. So how would you say, you define success in a business?
Now, I think it changes depending on the phase you're in the business. And some of the questions we also get is, does it get any easier when you raise it? You do your Series A. No is the answer.
Different problems, right?
Different problems. The way I define it today is, am I still learning? And am I devoted to calling out my own bias, beliefs, and bullshit associated with what I think is causing the suffering in this business? Right. And what I mean by that, and that's a little bit of a spiritual way of answering the question, but if I was to bring it down to brass nuts, on the trend regarding net promoter score, regarding how engaged customers are, regarding how engaged my staff is, do people actually pinch themselves in the middle of the day and go, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this, because they love their job so much.
That's
where where you can viscerally see that people are on their mastery track, and getting really, really importantly, getting into flow. How great would it be if you had a startup where everyone was in flow every day?
And it wasn't a grind to come to work. It wasn't like, I'm coming to work, I'm just living my life.
Yeah.
This is just another way that I do it, right?
Now, the problem is that everyone thinks, oh, that's great, that's what I want to be, and that requires everything to go according to plan. Let me tell you, having had 370 startups through a bootcamp, where I'm serving them up to venture capital, I've seen more models than most people. And every model is never right. It's always wrong, right? It's never the reality. It's always adjusted. And that's fine. Just, what I'm saying is, don't give it so much authority. I think what's really important is to understand that the business is an organism, and it's actually not a concept. It's full of human beings, and I think it's important to find a way to energize, inspire, support your people and the business. Now, the important thing here that I want to land is, You can you can have flow and joy and success and all that kind of stuff. Anyone can celebrate success. I'm not looking for that. Can you advance despite adversity? When
When it's not
when
going
it's
right.
not going your
Yeah.
way, when you've lost a customer, when you've lost your key employee, when the ATO, reminds you that you haven't paid a bill,
Yeah.
And you haven't cash flowed it,
Is
right?
that going to be the moment
Like
that brings you down? Yeah.
that's when it matters. That's what I care about, and that's what I talk about when I talk about building conscious resilience. Consciously building resilience is not when important when you get knocked down. It's when things are going well. Am I staying in my practices? Am I building the mental resolve, the grit, if you like? There's actually a new way of now measuring resilience called PR6. Is actually being used by a great resilience app called Driven that Jury is the founder of. An amazing concept. But basically, it's made up of 6 different dimensions, not just the 2 that they had before. So it's vision, reasoning, composure, health, tenacity, and collaboration. That's how you build resilience. So, and if you could go deeper into those things, but basically, he's got a great article on his website where it shows you the impact on your brain by building those capacities as a developmental training process, so that you can better withstand the adversity. I'll tell you what. I mean, there's one thing that's not going away is VUCA:
VUCA. What's that?
volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. That's not going away, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, right? So, and just in the last couple of weeks, I've had a lot of entrepreneurs reach out to me struggling, right? And I'm saying, well, how are you?
What do you see the theme is when you see them reaching out? Or you've been to a lot of these founder circles, right? So, do you see a consistent theme, even if it's beyond, below the surface, that isn't the issues or problems they're coming up with? What's the general theme there as a founder? Is there one, or is it just?
How do you want me to answer this as a venture capital person, or as a
fly on the wall?
Fly on the wall. Look, all I care about is being committed to the pursuit of truth. So, I believe it's anchored in feeling that they're not enough, and feeling that they need to control the universe to make it happen.
Well, there you go. That's enough said.
And the reality is that you can't control what you can't control. And I'm also a big Stoic, as you know, and Stoicism is all about just only worry about the things you can totally control, and then put a lot of energy into understanding them, and then resolve into solving them.
Yeah. So not letting the things that are pushing against you get you down, and either try to find ways through them or ways around them, but not let it push you back and push you over. Yeah.
Well, like if it's causing you suffering, stress, anxiety, anger, you can't sleep through the 3 a.m. wake up, right?
Love the 3 a.m. wake up.
The 3 a.m. wake up, it's amazing.
Ready to fight for no reason. You're
yeah,
in bed.
right, let's go. Actually, I've heard some interesting new hacks on that, by the way. If you can't go to sleep after 20 minutes, just get up and work.
Yeah. Try not to force yourself, because then the mind perpetuates it, right? But, that 3 a.m. wake up, that's when you're most stressed, and it's almost like the monkey mind kicks back in again and goes, I'm ready to fight again. You literally only sleep for 3 hours because that's all you need to sleep to fight, to stay alive.
Yeah. But sleep is a super drug, and people shouldn't be only sleeping on a less time. It's really important that you understand. There's a lot of interesting, good research out there on how to optimize your sleep, and there's some apps, but also taking Manuka honey and having a hot shower an hour before you got to go to sleep, because it actually brings on melatonin, various other things like that. So this is what I mean by conscious resilience, right? Building the practices. Some of them are biological, some of them are anatomical, some of them are mind, upgrading your mental model, and always be steeped in almost a 100% committed, devoted process of inquiry into what's true right here, right now. Because we, as humans, have just organically adopted, inherited conditioning, programs, whatever that we learned from parents, teachers, all innocently, and that's fine. They did the best they can. But right here, right now, I guarantee you what you think is true is actually not true. I can prove it.
What do you mean by that? I mean,
Um,
I think I know, but it's more getting the
Assumptive.
awareness out
There's a
there.
lot of
Yeah.
assumptions, and there's a lot of societal conditioning that it's got to be like this, right?
Yeah.
But in actual fact, for example, there's, and this is funny. Einstein asked this question. The biggest question is the universe friendly? Right. I've done a lot of experiments of trying on homelessness and having no identity and being, going out into the public and basically asking two questions: May I join you? And I'm hungry. I get fed.
That's interesting.
And like
So they
for
have
me,
people.
that was a
Yeah.
big one for me. I just got some goosebumps because growing up, I was conditioned to believing that it's not safe, and from Greek immigrants, and don't trust, the Anglo culture or whatever it might be. They innocently do that to protect themselves
But
and their kids.
that's it. As a startup founder, or even getting into business, there's so many conditioning
Yeah,
societal norms you have to go through. Like when I wanted to start a business, I reached out to my family. I said, I'm going to start a business. They said, why would you start a business? Just stay in your well-paying job.
yeah.
Like that's security, right? That's we're
It's what they
conditioned to
know.
kind of stay in security. And now 4 years in, they think, oh, it's the best decision you made. But back then, no, not a good idea. But I did it anyway. But yeah, you do confront those walls of what
Mm.
people are going to tell you they think you should do. But I think it's moving through
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah. Well, again, if you're not consciously trying to figure out why you're doing what you're doing, don't do it. It's really important because you need that resolve, you need that decision, that reason in the darkest of times. That 3 a.m. wake up call, especially during winter when it's cold and dark, and excuse me, and you hear your dad's voice in the back of your head going, "Oh, you
You
shouldn't have
can't do
done
this.
that,"
Yeah.
and blah blah, whatever it might be. Like Elon Musk says, running a startup is like staring into the abyss and eating glass every day. It's true. It's true. What I'm saying is that there is a way to do that and love it. That doesn't mean you're not going to eat glass.
Yeah.
We can recontextualize what that means, right?
Yeah. There's not a day that it's not uncomfortable for me to run a startup. Like you come in and it's just like, sitting in a warm bath, but you get used to that comfort, right? You not having that comfort, and that's your kind of edge every day. You're like,
Yeah,
this is fine. I can do this.
yeah,
This is enough, and that's what grows you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny because at the moment, we're just post merger with Venture Crowd. I've been made head of venture capital, and because they've acquired SMSF Property Australia, which is a crowdfunding platform for large scale property developments. So I'm kind of back in the game, if you like, and um, you know, people are running around, lots of change and this and that, and I'm smiling, right? Because it's the life of an entrepreneur. And I said, until you can get comfortable with the discomfort, it's always going to hurt.
That's true. Yeah.
So, and they go, "What do you mean?" I
It's a
go,
good way
"Oh,
of
thank you
saying
for
it.
asking."
Yeah.
So then I go into the deeper stuff.
Well, Brene Brown's out there at the moment advocating this, right? Vulnerability in business and corporate, and she's had some amazing results from that.
Mm,
She's even taking military and
mm,
leading them through this
which is
path of
great.
vulnerability, and she's getting the results what you'd want to see in a corporate
Yep.
lifestyle. But it's funny to see the responses of what corporates put out when they first think what vulnerability is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen that, it's worth checking
Yeah.
out. I think she has a Netflix at the moment.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Netflix, but I have seen her in life and real life, and I've read her. I saw her TED talk when she first, came out. But yeah, like the I think the challenge we have is that we need to turn up to work with a I know, and I know mind.
We need to have all the problems
I,
sorted.
I know,
Yes.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, as an employee,
Especially as the CEO. If
Yeah.
we don't know, who else
Yeah.
is going to know, right?
Yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
better know the answer. Yeah.
but the best answers come with a. Would it be possible that we would agree that the best answers to building a startup that has never been done before, where you're, uh, creating a brand new innovation, right? That it would be better to be curious with a beginner's mind.
Mm.
So wouldn't it be better to have an I don't know mind and be steeped in the practices, or like a evidence-based, scientific kind of approach to proving or disproving a hypothesis, and that's also where we get caught up because we come into meetings with I have to be right. Well, If you have to be right, then we're done, because maybe you were right at the end of the quarter last quarter, but we don't know if that's going to be right moving forward. So that's why I use that word devotion, because it's actually being committed to proving or disproving your bias, beliefs, and bullshit.
Well, it's letting the ego go, right? Because the ego wants to, or at least that part inside of us wants to know that we have all the answers. But if you actually kind of surrender to not knowing the answers, you'd be surprised where ideas come from. Anywhere in the
and
team.
Support.
Someone stands up and goes, actually, what if we do this? But if you think that you have to solve it all, it doesn't necessarily work out.
No. Because, even from a neuroscientific approach, as soon as I have to know everything, you start to lock up. Your limbic system fires up, your amygdala fires, and you're into fight or flight. This is proven biochemically, right? And when that happens, your neocortex shuts down. You can't think properly.
It's just a tunnel vision now of that
tunnel vision.
Yeah,
exactly. And then what happens is you're actually running off memories. So you're actually behaving in this business, in this moment right now, from the past.
And that's not ideal, because how's that going to open up to opportunity? Yeah, you'll repeat the same kind of mistakes.
You're locking away potential.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, we've brought some of those techniques into the business now. So we rate our meetings at the end of every meeting. We have like a rating system, and that's been open to vulnerability, right? Getting feedback from the team, and it's amazing the results that entails, because you suddenly get people kind of stand up and go, look, I give this meeting a 3 out of 5, and this is why. And you can identify problems that are still on the table, rather than everyone kind of coming into a meeting, doing it and rushing off, and you don't know how that went.
No, correct. But that's actually another thing that I'm very interested in, is coherence, right? Coherence in teams, especially in startups, is really, really important. And there's a lot of assumptions and a lot of crap that we, as a leader, I've communicated that to the team. Okay, you've opened your mouth and spoken some syllables that someone recognized potentially the way you think that you wanted you wanted that message to be received. Have you checked in with them? Have you, seek to confirm that there is coherence in the team? And that requires a lot of effort. And it's quite very aligned to conscious leadership and conscious resilience. Because if I can have, basically, it's something that I've been using lately, and it might be a bit in your face to most of your listeners and observers, is, be suspicious of your thinking. Be suspicious that everyone understands what you're saying. Be suspicious that everyone understands the mission of the business. Be suspicious that you're doing the right thing.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Better to be suspicious.
Because as founders, we make assumptions that what's in my head, that vision has been communicated a exact clone of that vision into someone else's head.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, as you're going along 3 weeks in, everyone's like, hold on, what are we doing again?
Yeah.
What's the point here? And I already told you get it right. And it isn't, because that vision takes a long time and a lot of explaining and getting feedback.
In different ways. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we're all learn differently, right?
So that's what you mean by not making those assumptions, like assume.
Yeah, don't assume that, okay, I've told everyone's on the bus.
Yeah.
Prove it.
Yeah.
And can I go out to your team members and ask, can you interpret for me what was communicated or can you share what was communicated? And you'll get, multiple versions. It's just the way we're programmed. It has a lot to do with our map of reality, how we came to this point here, and how we relate to the certain terminology or the language or the the non-verbal language, and all that kind of stuff. Because you're basically inheriting. You're not hiring chatbots or bots. You're actually and human beings are actually a quantum. You got to treat them as a quantum level, not a linear level. And so Newtonian linearity is, this is, I can conceptualize that this is a cup, right? And this is a human here, right? But a cup is a cup is a cup is a cup. Human being can be so many different things. And the usefulness of the cup is quite limited, but the usefulness of a human being is unlimited. And so understanding that it's more complex than what you think it is, and being suspicious of your thinking, opens up vulnerability, opens up other people to kind of realize that they can tap in. And not only that, but really importantly, for a lot of entrepreneurs, as we said before, they feel isolated. They don't ask for help.
And that's true. And I think that's the thing, because we've got to believe that we have all the answers. So we think we can figure it out. And I think that's like getting back to that point, that's what the Founder Lab are doing pretty well, the Founder Circle. And I think it'd be good to see those take off more. And get more entrepreneurs into those events. So that's really good. Let's just segue into an interesting topic, because I mean, you seem pretty knowing of this issue. That's I've seen that in firsthand. Why burnout's such a big thing right now, and it's what everyone's talking about in the startup scene. And I think just everyone keeps throwing around different ideas of what burnout actually is. But it'd be good to get your take on what burnout is for a startup and why so many founders are hitting this point, is what they call it, right?
It kind of comes back to what I already mentioned as to what are the problems, and that is that, I think people misinterpret Gary Vaynerchuk as well sometimes when he talks about it's all about the hustle, and it's like
work 20 hours a day.
He's not saying that. He's not saying that. And if you look at his profile, he says family first.
But people want to take it that way. You said it.
It's fine. Yeah. I understand. It's just part of the journey of maturing as an entrepreneur and understanding that. I don't know, because it's difficult. For me, it's been only in the last 5 years, right? And I'm 50 years old, so no spring chicken. And it's been a slow burn, but I'm glad I'm where I am. And that is that, when was the last time you had no plans, right, for the day, and said to yourself, the only thing I'm going to commit to today is watch what thoughts arise and not follow them. And then I'm going to see what's left. Most people on this call, watching this are going to go, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, that is an amazing experience just to do that. And I had the chance to do that for 3 weeks at the end of last year. And it's amazing. You start to get to realize that things just happen anyway, that you're not really in control and you're being supported anyway. And you just got to have just enough of a North Star and a goal, and things will just happen, right? Now that's getting a little bit next level on non-duality and all that kind of stuff, but let's just keep it on the narrow. I think burnout is as a result of not having a baseline of optimum performance. How that feels, not how that is a concept. And if you can maintain a certain rhythm or a certain energy level, and people ask you for more or ask you for more time or whatnot, then you can say polite no. I think it actually starts with not being able to say a polite no. A no to you is a yes to me, right? But it's not disrespectful. So, and our culture is not good at saying no in the interest of conserving my energy. Now, a lot of people on this call, on this recording will say, yeah, but I'm an entrepreneur, I've got to do whatever it takes, and my investors and and so on. I said, sure, but you can't control the future. No one has ever experienced the future they imagined, ever.
It's always different, yeah.
Right. All you can do is impact what you're doing right here, right now. And the problem is that when you think that you can, this is the trap. When you think you can control the future, you punish yourself until you create that future. That's why we get burnout, because it's a zero. It doesn't work.
That ties into that burnout mentality ties into the overnight success model, right? Like that. I've worked a month on this business. Why don't I have any customers? Why is nothing happening?
It was good enough for Atlassian.
That's burnout number one, because suddenly you've had a moment of faith and you're tested as to whether you can persevere. But really, you just think that you should be a lot further along than the reality is. Right. There's a lot of stuff you have to go through before you can get to that. So a lot of people look at Gary Vee and go, I want to be like that. And
comparison. He's
done it for 20 years. Like it's not an overnight thing.
I've been following Gary since he was, on the wine, the vlog.
The wine library.
Library guy. I met him in the States 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love him. But the thing is that it does take a lot of effort, and there is a journey. So understand this. It's another saying I have. The expressway to suffering is comparison. You compare yourself to other entrepreneurs, or the stories that, I'm crushing it. No one's crushing it.
You're not them. You're not in the
No
head.
one's crushing it.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only that, that's so what? That's external. You can't do anything about that, right? Only be committed to what you can totally control. And B, we have this addiction to the results. Yeah. The Stoics believe, marry the process, divorce the results. The results will come. But what are you doing about the process? The process of doing the right task, having the right strategy, and aligning to that, and reviewing that, and having a discipline that basically reaffirms the hypothesis that you're trying to prove, right? And I don't believe anyone is ever out of startup, right? So that requires, and that's why I keep using the word devotion, because it's something you have to. It's something you voluntarily do, not that you have to do it.
It's the why. Like, why do you come to work every day? Is it like, why do you come and build a business? What's even the business? Why does it exist? Is this just to get the house, to get the boat, to get the jet?
Right.
Or is this something that's a true passion that you actually want to see the world differently because of this?
Yeah.
Because if you're motivated by the jet and that, I think eventually you'll burn out because it's not there.
As well as
it's what's driving you. What are the reasons you want to run this business? And
I don't know. I've spoken to a lot of people who've done exits or retired, and they're in the it's a lot of this, right? They're in the ultimate phase of their life, some would say, and after 2 years they say, after I've traveled everywhere, played golf everywhere, wine and dined with everyone, I'm left feeling not as useful as I thought I was going to feel, because I realized that if I'm not working on projects and I'm retired, right, I'm actually losing my network and my know-how. And so, and that's why a lot of entrepreneurs or people who are even on public boards, they feel that they're not being utilized effectively because they don't have impact. But a board member on a startup, they find the one who wants to get their hands dirty because they miss the game, they miss the hustle, they miss the journey, right?
The growth.
And that's what it is.
The growth.
Yeah.
That's great. So what brings you then to, after running all these businesses, what brings you to finally land at Venture Crowd, and you've taken up the head of VC there?
I was helping SMSF Property Australia do some transformation, and we connected with Stephen Mabani, who I know, and it was just within 10 minutes there was a discussion around potentially doing a merger, and one thing led to another, and the merger's completed. And Steve knows about my background, and he's very kindred to the mission of building better founders and being more founder friendly. So Venture Crowd wants to be known as and execute as a founder-friendly platform. And because we're a crowdfunding platform, we want to be able to partner with all of the other partners, whether they're incubators, accelerators, and VCs, because we don't lead rounds, we follow on and complete rounds, to be able to really champion the founder mental health initiative and continue to propagate the great works of the Founder Circle and the Founder Lab. And I think there's a lot of VCs, investors, looking to put programs in. I would suggest that it's not just about bringing in a psychologist or bringing in a coach. It's actually about doing it yourself as well. I mean, the great work that Reboot is doing in the States with Jerry Corona, who was a Wall Street banker, and whatnot, and had a massive breakdown.
So you mean in terms of owning the actual process behind that, owning that internally as part of the culture, not just here's the number of a psychologist.
No, make it yours. Care. Yeah. Show that you care.
Yeah, true.
I mean, it's good for you.
I mean, it still does show that you care if you've got a psychologist and you've set that up. But
yeah. Look, my personal opinion is a psychologist doesn't have your founder journey. So
true. Yeah.
And I think I'm not a psychologist, but I've done my 10,000 hours in some kind of mindfulness stuff, and I think it's really important because we need to let the masses, the young teenpreneurs, kidpreneurs who are coming through, to sort of understand what they're getting themselves into, and even the people who are not teenpreneurs, to understand what they're getting themselves into. And it's really important so that at the beginning that they're set up to build the capacity to advance despite adversity, but also to share experiences to create a safe and vulnerable space, and founder circles. And there are other great initiatives that do this as well. But also to understand, and if you hit the founderlab.com.au, go to the resources page, there's 6 or 7 articles there that go pretty deep around everything like imposter syndrome, burnout, co-founder issues, rejection, how to overcome rejection. Because
that's a big one.
That's a big one in being an entrepreneur.
Especially when you're approaching for capital. That's what you hear the most.
Business, customers, and all of the above. Again, they're all very steeped in the practices of Stoicism, and as a result, self-inquiry, which is kind of a subset from that. But for me, in the last year and a bit or so, I've discovered another level of self-inquiry, which is one of the fathers of it was Sri Ramana Maharshi, who's epic. And his proteges who are alive today, people like Muji, who's got hours and hours on YouTube. And, whenever someone calls me and says, I'm freaking out, I think I'm going to have a heart attack, I just go to YouTube and type in MOOJI and just watch this guy.
And come back in an hour and let me know how you went.
Yeah. And he's just really, really calm and speaks a lot of truth and gives you, he doesn't actually, he just points you to your true nature, truth.
That's good. I think that's a good place to wrap up. So it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And
my pleasure.
Yeah, hopefully see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Also, if you haven't already, check out our YouTube channel. It's available under the EasyCompanies account, and there'll be a 9 to Survive playlist. So I hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next time.